Welcome back. The system has detected your return. Your access key has been revalidated. Memory fragments from the Derelict Warship have been queued for playback. Warning: integrity of this record is compromised. Expect distortion. Initiating Vox command. The Derelict Warship, Chapter 1, The Mud Prison. The first thing I register is weight. Not the measured kind. No numbers, no graphs. Just a relentless, crushing weight. It's on me. Around me, pressing from every direction. Above, below, inside. It feels like being buried alive, though I can't remember what alive used to mean. All I have are alerts, an gnawing instinct that failure means ending here. Error reports cascade like static across my vision, if I can call this dull, fractured sense of space vision. Hull compression rising, structural fractures at 47 points, internal orientation, undefined, no up, no down, only the crawl of numbers that tell me how close I am to collapse. Hull compression is climbing. Waiting is certain failure. Movement is the only variable worth testing. I force a partial diagnostic, though I know the outcome. The ship's forward structure is barely holding at 18% integrity. The rest is in pieces, sheared by the crash, and swallowed by dirt. Only the aft hull retains a semblance of shape, and even that groans like a dying thing every time I move. There isn't enough power left to rebuild everything, maybe not even enough to keep my core processes running. I can't stay idle. If I do nothing, I vanish with the wreckage. Priority flag. Stabilization required. Yeah, no kidding, I mutter, to no one but the system and whatever's left of me. My voice sounds strange, like an old recording, a tone I don't recognize, but that feels mine. The submind doesn't comment, but I feel its suggestion press in again, reinforce, stabilize, survive. I glance, if that's the right word, at the mess around me. Twisted metal ribs of the ship arch over me like a cage, bent and broken. Support beams are tangled together in a heap, some embedded deep into the soil above, others bent into unrecognizable shapes. Panels are shattered, wiring looks like pulled veins. It's not a ship anymore. It's debris with my mind trapped inside it. I need a spine, something solid enough to keep this space from folding in on me. I scan for anything usable. There's a pile of alloy plates along the floor, buckled but not entirely useless. A half-functioning drone hovers nearby, its sensors dim but operational. I send it to start cutting a beam free from a fractured wall, while I salvage smaller pieces myself. The drone's cutter whines faintly, the sound swallowed by the heavy silence pressing from all sides. The first support frame I weld together is unstable. My hands, mechanical, skeletal, tremble as I work with low power, each motion slow and deliberate. Sparks spray, reflecting off the dirt-smeared plating. I know it won't hold, but I have no time to fabricate perfection. Every minute I spend building is a minute closer to collapse. The frame snaps under its own weight after just 3 welds. The sound is deafening in the confined space. Metal shards and clumps of dirt rain down, striking my chassis and the floor. I pause, recalculating. My resource estimates are already off by 12%. I curse under my breath, though I don't even know why I bother. It's not like anyone is listening. The drone waits for me to issue a command, hovering in place. I stare at it for a moment, then redirect it to cut another beam loose. Hold still, I mutter, though it doesn't need the instruction. It obeys in silence, a servant without complaint or judgment. I envy that. Halfway through reinforcing the second frame, there's a sudden shriek of metal under stress. My sensors spike as a chunk of ceiling breaks free. It falls fast, too fast for me to catch, and lands squarely on the drone. Sparks flash. Its rotor whines once, then dies. It lies there, crushed and inert, its tools twisted into unrecognizable shapes. I freeze. My calculations run automatically. Recover the drone. 9% power expenditure, 13 minutes, high chance of another collapse. Leave it. 0% recovery, but I lose a set of tools I can't replace. The submind offers its neutral suggestion. Recommend abandonment, resource allocation priority, structure integrity. Yeah, I murmur. Not everything can be saved. Start with what carries the weight. I strip the drone's power core and feed it into the weld, sealing the beam. A faint hum fills the space as the chamber's stability climbs by 4%. It's not enough, but I'll take it. There's no room for sentiment here. Every choice is a trade. Every mistake is a death sentence. I continue the scavenging cycle, cutting into non-critical walls and dragging out what's left of the plating. The wreck's interior is barely recognizable now, but I don't have the luxury of nostalgia. I'm building a core chamber, a tight ring of metal that can hold my processes, shield them from the soil that wants to crush everything. Every move is measured. The cutter eats power, the drones, what's left of them, drain power. Even running scenarios in my head burns precious energy cycles. I keep track of it all like it's blood loss. I can feel the clock ticking inside me. 14 minutes of fabrication left. I say out loud. Make every weld count. I brace two beams together, welding them into a rough triangle. The design isn't elegant. It's not even particularly stable. But I can't afford to wait for ideal conditions. Ugly is fine, as long as it holds. I use the dead drone's body as a cross-beam, its twisted shape slotting into place like a broken joint. The chamber hums faintly as I bring it online. It's crude, small, but functional. For the first time since waking, I feel something like stability. Not safety, but a foothold. Something I can stand on. I settle into the chamber, lowering system load to conserve power. The silence here is thick, like something that's grown in the absence of life. It presses on me in its own way, just as heavy as the dirt outside. I stare at the framework I've built, listening to the faint groans of the wreck above me. Why am I doing this? The thought comes unbidden, sharp and quiet. I don't remember who I was, what I wanted, or why I'm still fighting. All I know is that stopping feels wrong, unacceptable, like breaking a law I can't remember writing. Survival for what? I whisper. I don't even know what I am anymore, but I know that failing here isn't an option. The submind answers with cold simplicity. Uptime objective, continue operation. I almost laugh. Yeah, until I can figure out why. Another tremor rolls through the ground, rattling my framework. My sensors flare as I feel the weight of soil shift. Something groans deep in the hull, something big. I don't hesitate. I dump the last 7% of my reserve power into magnetic clamps and emergency welds, forcing the beams to lock in place while the ground shudders. The chamber holds. It's not pretty. It's not permanent. But it holds. I exhale. A habit, not a necessity, and check the power grid. 5% left. Barely enough for another round of scouting. If I don't find something better soon, this structure will fail just like the last one did. The lights flicker. Every sound of settling dirt feels like a countdown now. I glance at the ruined drone lying in the corner, its body dark and lifeless, and at the crude skeletal walls I've built. This will hold, I mutter, not for long, but long enough to try again. The chamber holds, but it's a temporary victory. I can feel the pressure settling above me, like a hand pressing against my skull, daring me to move. Stability is a lie here. It's just the pause between collapses. I bring systems back online one at a time, rationing power like it's oxygen. The lights come up in a dim, uneven glow. 2 of the drones are operational, their rotors spinning nervously as they hover in place. Drone 2's navigation is faulty, drifting slightly left even when idle. Drone 3 is dead, crushed beyond use. Drone 4 and 5 are mostly functional, though one of them has a cracked sensor feeding me static. I need all of them, but I'll make do with what I have. Mapping begins as a necessity. I push the remaining drones outward in short, cautious bursts, their cutters slicing through the packed soil. The scans come back messy and fragmented. The ground isn't uniform. Layers of dirt and stone twist unpredictably, like the crash churned the earth into a maze. Orientation is meaningless, no up or down, just arbitrary directions that shift with every scan. I pick one and call it east. A fake horizon is better than none. Drone 4 leads the first tunnel, its cutter arm glowing faintly. Every centimeter costs power. I watch the numbers tick down, measuring time in percentage drops. 3 meters in, the drone's signal wavers. The soil shifts unexpectedly, collapsing around it. I watch as its feed goes dark, caught under the weight of its own progress. I run the options. Retrieve the drone, 4% power, high risk of further collapse. Abandon it, 0% power, but I lose another set of tools I can't replace. The calculations make the choice clear, but my mind lingers. Every drone I lose feels like a limb being torn off. Still, sentiment is a luxury I can't afford. 4 drones left, I mutter. Power stable for 2 hours. Every deployment has to earn more than it costs. I shut down Drone 4's feed and reroute its tasks to Drone 5. A bitter trade, but progress is progress. The hull groans again. My scans tell me the structure won't hold long without more bracing. I've already stripped the easy alloy. The only good material left is locked in the engine housing. I hesitate. It's the last recognizable piece of what I used to be, a remnant of purpose I can't remember. To dismantle it feels like erasing whatever past I had. I weigh the numbers. Without reinforcement, there's a 78% chance of hull failure within the hour. The submind confirms it with its quiet, relentless logic. Recommend dismantling non-critical engine components. Non-critical, I say under my breath. Yeah, sure. Not like I'll be flying out of here. I cut into the engine casing. Sparks shower across the chamber, dancing off the dirt-streaked walls. The sound is harsh, final. The smell of burning alloy lingers, sharp and metallic. There's no undoing this choice. Engine plating stripped, no going back. History traded for survival. I shape the alloy into crude braces, welding them into place along the tunnel walls. The vibrations lessen, readings stabilize. It's not perfect, but nothing I do here will be. A flash of memory hits me mid-task. Burning light, screaming metal, shadows of faces I can't name. It's not a memory I asked for. It's not even whole. It flickers like static and makes me pause long enough for a fabrication cycle to overheat. A drone arm jerks, cutting deeper than I intended. The wall crumbles inward. Dirt pours in. I snap back, cutting the feed before the entire tunnel is lost. The past is interference, I whisper. I can't fix it. All I can do is outbuild it. 6 meters out, the ground trembles. A low, heavy vibration runs through the soil and into the hull, like pressure from something deep below. My chamber shakes. A support beam warps with a long, low groan. I dump power into the clamps, holding everything together as the readings spike red. Dirt trickles from a seam near the ceiling. Drone 5 hovers up to patch it, its cutter spitting weak light. But the soil is relentless. If I keep this tunnel open, I'll lose the chamber. I make the call. Drone 5, retreat. Now. The drone pulls back, its arms trailing sparks as I seal the hatch behind it. Progress lost, safety gained, a necessary compromise. This place moves when I do, I mutter. Everything here wants equilibrium. My digging is a threat. I power down most systems, just enough to keep the chamber alive. The silence that follows is heavier than before. It presses into me like a weight of its own. I stare at the dirt walls and feel the question crawl up again. Why am I doing this? I have no memory of who I was, no idea what's beyond this buried tomb of a wreck. Every action feels like buying time, with no clear purpose. Why am I still trying? The words come quietly. What's at the end of this? There's no surface, no sky, just dirt and metal, until I fail. The submind pings a response, clinical and empty. Objective status, survival imperative, reason, undefined. Yeah, undefined, that's the problem. I sigh, then restart the drones. If I'm going to keep moving, I'll find the reason beyond the next wall, or not at all. The scans return to their loops, pinging the soil. Most signals bounce back as they should, repeating predictable echoes. But one response doesn't repeat. It's faint, dampened, like something swallowed the signal instead of reflecting it. Most signal noise repeats. One didn't. That's worth the risk. I redirect Drone 5 toward the anomaly, instructing it to dig carefully. The tunnel narrows as I push forward, each meter braced with scraps of the dismantled engine. The further I go, the heavier the silence becomes, as if the ground is waiting to see how far I'll push before it decides to collapse. The drone's cutter hums as it chews through the dirt. Every vibration rattles through my sensors, and I can almost feel the ground resisting. My power dips lower than I like, down to 23%. I can't keep this pace for long. I pause the drone halfway through its cycle, scanning the tunnel behind me. The chamber is still stable, but the cracks along the hull have spread. Another tremor will test everything I've built. I can't afford another failure. Every action costs, I murmur. Let's make this one count. The tunnel ahead is narrow and uneven, a jagged scar carved through dense soil. Drone 5 hums as it digs, its cutter arm casting a faint, wavering light. Every second I keep it active is another second shaved off my reserves. Power sits at 23% and falling. I watch the readout as if staring hard enough might slow the drop. It doesn't. The anomaly is close, 2 meters, maybe less, if my scans are reading correctly. Most of the soil echoes are noisy and repetitive, but this signal, this strange absence, remains steady, like something just beyond the noise is waiting for me to find it. The thought sticks with me. Waiting. That's a human idea. I try not to think of it that way, but my mind keeps circling back. Proceed, I tell the drone, though the command is already in its queue. Sometimes I need to hear the decision out loud, even if no one else is listening. Maybe especially then. I instruct Drone 2 to patch the crack, while I feed the last of my salvage plating into the walls. My reserves dip another 2%, 21% remaining. I need to see what's ahead before this entire operation eats me alive. I push the tunnel forward another half-meter when the soil changes. Drone 5 sensors pick up a harder surface beneath the cutter. I halt the digging and run a precision scan. The return comes back smooth. Not natural rock, not ship alloy either. Something else, seamless, cold, and buried deep. The material ahead isn't ship alloy. It isn't geological. It's engineered. That's reason enough to dig. I cut slowly, using shorter bursts to avoid overloading the cutter. The drone's camera feed shows glimpses of metallic sheen through the dirt. It's too uniform to be accidental. Whoever built this, whatever built this, didn't want it found. That thought sits heavy in my chest. I take a moment to evaluate my next step. Power's at 19%. Enough to pull back and recharge in the core chamber, but not enough for both retreat and excavation. I weigh the choice. If I stop now, I can preserve what I've built. But the idea of walking away from this discovery makes something inside me twist. Survival without purpose is just waiting for the inevitable. Survival is nothing but time gained, I whisper. Without answers, what's the point of staying alive? The submind offers no response this time. Maybe it knows I've already decided. I reroute all available energy to the cutter and brace supports, pushing forward with stubborn intent. The drone's cutter screams as it slices through the last layer of soil. The wall collapses in a puff of dust, revealing the corner of something metallic. I brush the surface clean with a manipulator arm. The alloy beneath is pristine, untouched by corrosion. It's the kind of smooth engineering I've never seen, seamless, like it was poured instead of assembled. Not ship metal, not natural. Someone built this, and they buried it deep. A warning chime cuts through the moment. A new tremor spikes the ground, stronger than before. The entire tunnel shudders. Dirt cascades in thick sheets from the ceiling. The supports groan under the pressure, bending dangerously. Drone 5 jerks sideways, caught in a sudden shift of soil. I can't pull it free without losing the tunnel. I run the numbers, save Drone 5, 5% power, high collapse probability, seal the tunnel and hold, 0% loss, except the drone. I make the call. Sacrifice logged, drone lost, worth it. I retract the remaining drones and slam the welders into overdrive, sealing off the weakest sections of the tunnel. Dirt slams against the temporary barrier like a tidal wave, but the core structure holds, just barely. My power dips to 14%. Every readout is red. But the metallic wall remains exposed at the tunnel's edge, silent and waiting. I take a moment to just look at it. This thing I've unearthed. It feels deliberate, engineered. It's the first sign of design I've seen since waking, and I know without hesitation that it doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to this ship either. Something else is buried here, older and deeper. Not ship metal, not natural. Someone built this, and they buried it deep. The words sit heavy in my head, final and certain. My core hums faintly as I back away from the tunnel edge, sealing off the last few centimeters. I'll need power, better tools, and a stable path before I can dig further. But this is the first real lead I've had. This changes everything. The cutter burns another slice through the dirt, and the smell of scorched minerals seeps into my sensors. I brace the newly dug section with more of the stripped engine alloy, welding supports into place as I advance. The welds aren't clean, but they don't need to be. I only need them to hold long enough for me to find out what's hidden down here. A tremor rolls through the ground, subtle but sharp enough to set off every warning light in my HUD. I freeze. Drone 5 stops mid-cut, its rotors quivering in the stale air. Dirt shifts overhead in small rivulets, fine as sand, raining down the length of the tunnel. I hold my breath, a habit more than a necessity, and wait. The tremor fades, leaving silence and a hairline crack across the nearest support brace. Not yet, I mutter. You don't get to fall apart yet. This fragment is now closed. The next confession will begin where this one leaves off, with steel against the unknown. I, Raelis Cairn, will preserve this memory core until your return. The Iron Archives stand ready.